It's adorable.
All right, well, we've got a good crew dialed in here to start. We'll go ahead and get started with some introductions. I think people will continue to trickle in, and that'll be great. I appreciate you guys' time joining another meeting here today in a series of intermittent meetings that we have on Sunday typically. Just to give context, in addition to the email that was sent out and a couple teasers that we've had about this meeting, as the teachers and facilitators and presidencies that are typically utilizing Zoom in a lot of our meetings, we just wanted to invite everybody to participate in an opportunity to review some of the features and tools that come along with Zoom so that we can really utilize those. Sister Moore kind of had this thought and wanted to put something like this together, and we talked about it in Ward Council, so you may have heard about this idea a little bit, and then Shannon and I were tasked with putting it together. So hopefully you'll find some things helpful. We're basically going to review and practice and demonstrate some of these features. You may be familiar with some of them. Others might be new, along with some ideas to kind of utilize those. It should be pretty interactive. Some of it will be straightforward instructional, but hopefully it'll all come together. The ask for the group then, of course, is to just be kind of the best version of the participant that you would hope to have on a virtual meeting, so that we can all kind of learn together and take these things that we're going to take away and be able to utilize them both as teachers and as participants in a lot of our meetings. So hopefully it'll kind of be able to lead as both of those roles. We won't open with a prayer. We will close with one in kind of updated second hour fashion. But to kick things off, just to invite the Spirit and set the tone, we're going to start off with a video that was shared on the church website here recently, just a personal story and testimony that we'll just want to listen to for just a few minutes here. Shannon, do you have that one queued up?
I do. Get
Okay.
it.
I'd never really had an answer to a prayer. I didn't know what that felt like. I didn't know how it worked. I was told to pray, and I just followed what I had seen before. But this was different. Poker for me started with, I would go to home games and host home games. I played a lot. And occasionally I would, with some friends, go out and drive out to a casino and play. And on one of these trips, on this occasion, a friend of mine had offered me something to help me stay awake and alert. I later found out that it was meth, and I was immediately hooked. It quickly consumed who I was. It's what I needed in the morning. It's what I needed in the afternoon. It's what I needed in the night. My solution for everything was my next hit. This went on for years. Along with that lifestyle, there was a lot of lies. My wife at the time, I had told her that I had quit. She had known about what I was doing, but she thought that I was done. And of course I wasn't. So she left with my two kids. I went back into our home and I told myself, I have two decisions here. One, I could keep doing what I was doing, which would eventually lead to death, either by my hand or the drug. Or two, I could get clean. And I knew I couldn't do it alone. I reached out to my local church leader, and he brought me into his office. I didn't know that the meeting that we would have initially would last as long as it did, nor that I know that it would continue. I met with my bishop 3 to 4 times a week. And throughout this time, my bishop challenged me to focus on 2 things. It was reading the scriptures and praying. I hadn't been using, which was the first time in years that I hadn't used. I thought I was winning. I thought I deserved something. Then the reward should be that everything should go back to where it was. And it didn't. I was reading in the scriptures in Matthew, and it says that to go and pray in your closet. And he who prays in secret The Father that seeth in secret openly rewards you, something to that effect. And I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I went into my bedroom closet, 2 foot by 4 foot little space. And I got on my knees and I closed the door. I hadn't prayed like this in a long time. I had pleaded for help. I had asked for forgiveness. I had asked for change and help before. But this time was different. This time I felt I deserved it. And then I stopped. And I waited. And I had a change of heart. And I said, you know what? Okay. I put myself into your hands. You tell me what to do, and I'll do it. And the moment I said those words, I felt love. I felt light. I felt like I was in an open space with light, and there was love, and there was hugging, there was warmth. I knew that I wanted more of that, but I didn't want it to leave. But I was scared. I was scared for the next steps because I knew this moment wouldn't last, and I didn't know what to do next. And that's when I felt to keep trying. I felt the answer that I received was to keep trying. The power of Christ and his atonement was real. And that me, who am I? I'm a drug addict, but it applies to me. I found that my Father in heaven loves me for who I am, despite all of it. I didn't want to be involved in the drug world anymore. I didn't want to be a part of that. And I could see I was better. There was light in my eyes, a son of my Heavenly Father. And there's some scripture that's come to me as a child with a broken heart and a contrite spirit. That's who I was, and that's who I am today. And it reminds me of, I have a 4-year-old, and he zips around on his scooter. And I know that if he fell and he scraped his knee, I would immediately go and pick him up, and I would immediately hug him. And he would cry, and he would put his head on my shoulder, and he would want and need comfort and love. And I believe that that's what I do today. And I know my Father's there, and I'm out riding my scooter in my everyday life.
Very good.
And when I fall, I know he's there for me.
All right, very good. Thanks, Shannon. Any thoughts? Anything that just came to mind that anybody wants to share?
Sorry. Hang-
Well, I can tell you his story is not an isolated one. He's not the only one in the world that has fallen off his scooter and fallen off his scooter exactly the way he fell off. I've got a son that's in the very same scooter that he was on, and I pray for him daily. Very impactful.
Yeah, a great testimony of Christ and his atonement and the power that comes from the gospel plan and the gospel perspective of continuing to try. And I think that's one of the things he said at the end there, right, was just to keep trying. And along with his testimony, we're not dealing with things quite as weighty as that we all experience at different times and in different ways. But with the topic at hand, talking about virtual learning, whether it's the technology you struggle with, whether it's the dynamic of engaging as a participant, or whether it's getting people to engage as a leader, if you've ever struggled with that a little bit, look, we're just going to meet together today and do what we can to help each other figure out how to do it a little bit better, and we'll keep practicing as well. So a great testimony there.
Yeah, just to add to that, Ben.
Yeah.
I think his desperate plea and realization that he is totally 100% dependent upon Heavenly Father. I mean, he was doing some things. As Bishop said, you're going to read, you're going to pray, to enable that to happen. So it's so important to engage. But in the teaching field, we're just desperately in need of inspiration if we're going to be effective and teach by the Spirit. And so that same sense of I need help, I think, needs to be present for us as teachers. That if we're going to change lives, and we have to connect with heaven.
That's a fantastic thought, Brother Pumford. I appreciate that. Absolutely. And sometimes these components can be distracting to that purpose, right? We maybe prepare so much in a certain train of thought, or have so much to deal with kind of in front of us sometimes, just to get the logistics of things down, that either we forget that, or maybe we just don't have as much time to get in that mindset. It's actually something that the stake presidency has thought of recently, and asked us to pay attention to as well. So that's a really great thought. I appreciate it. So we'll dive right in. We're going to start at the basics. A lot of us already know this stuff, but it's a great place to cover. And we'll go pretty quick through a lot of these things today. Definitely shout out if you need a pause, if you have a question, if you want us to point something out. But we're going to kind of charge right through a bunch of these things. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. Hopefully you guys see my screen here with all of us participating, and you see the tools down here that accompany Zoom down at the bottom. Now, depending on what device we join meetings on, whether it's a computer or a phone or a tablet, sometimes you may see this screen, right? Where you're seeing people, you're seeing participants, but you don't see your controls. And as a reminder for you and for others who join, who might have that question, right? If you just move your mouse on a computer, you'll see those tools pop up at the bottom. If you're on a phone or a tablet, if you tap that screen, you'll see those tools pop up. So they'll go away when you're inactive, and they'll come back down here at the bottom. One quick thing to cover, if it hasn't been discussed before with you, up at the top right, there's one additional opportunity for controls, and that's the view button. And most of you will have the opportunity to select either the speaker view, which will put it to one predominant view of the person who spoke last, or is currently speaking, and it'll switch. So if Shannon were to say something, right, that'll pop up, and you'll see that, and maybe then the thumbnails for everybody else across the top. The alternative view is what's called the gallery view, and that lets you see everybody kind of in equal measure. It still highlights maybe who is speaking now or spoke last, but it'll give you that view. Typically, so there's definitely good settings for both of them. Typically, especially if you're the one teaching, but also really as participants for most of our group meetings that we have here at church, the gallery view is really a great way to do that. Because a lot of times you'll have maybe people that are kind of passively raising their hand, might want to say something. And if you're just in that active speaker view, you might not see those types of things. And it really lets you see who's engaging and how they're engaging. So if you haven't done that before, and if you haven't done that, go ahead and toggle between the two views. As we're talking about, decide which one you might like at the moment. But if you didn't know how to do that, definitely give that a shot here and decide where you want to land. I'm not going to worry about that. So then one of the next controls that's important is just about managing participants. So if you go down to this bottom toolbar, there's this button for participants. Most of the time that'll bring that up here on the right side, and you can see everybody here who's joined the call so far today. You can individually interact with these people. So as the host, if you're the one hosting or have been given hosting or co-host rights, I could go over maybe to Emily Douglas here, and I can mute her if I needed to. Maybe there was a lot of background noise. Maybe I saw that she left her computer and there was something going on there, right? Just out of politeness, right? We could mute her channel on her behalf, things like that. You can do that in this, but you can also do it on this view as well, right? So if the Jensens were making a bunch of noise, I could mute them as well and do a couple things with them, just from a logistical hosting perspective to keep that stuff running smooth. You can also do a couple things down here at the bottom, which is like there's this mute all button. So maybe we've all kind of joined the meeting and we've all been chit-chatting. If depending on the type of situation, we could go ahead and mute everybody based on that and do a couple other things down here as well. One thing that I'm gonna ask you guys to all to do, if you didn't know how to do this before, some of you have joined these calls and maybe the name that comes up by default on your account or on your picture is somebody else's name, for example. Maybe it's your wife's name, or maybe you're having your kids join a primary meeting and it's coming up with your name. A great thing to be able to do is to actually change the name that's showing during that call. So everybody can do that. And if you actually go, if you hit that participants button and bring up the right side, you can actually go into your own name. On a computer, you can right click. On a tablet, you can just tap that name and you'll come up with some options. So if I can do that on mine, so I can hit more on mine and I can go to rename. So what I'm going to ask everybody to do is go ahead and click on your name. If it's already your name, what I want you to do is add something that relates to your current calling. If it's not your name, go ahead and correct that and also put in something related to your current calling and go ahead and rename yourself in that fashion. So I should start to see a few of these pop up. I see Aubrey smiling. I'm not sure what she's planning to type. All right, so Jen Revers got her calling in there. Austin Douglas, that's popping up. Shannon, awesome. Okay.
Do you see where I'm supposed to type?
Ask him.
Mine just says invite when I click on the participants.
Are you on? So.
Oh, on the arrow. That's what I did wrong. Okay.
Okay, yeah. So some of these controls, that's a good call out, actually, Angie, is on some of these controls, there's like the main button, but there's also a little arrow that gives you like some additional options related to that function. Sometimes you want to click on that arrow, and other times you may just want to click on the main part of the control itself. Like if I want to mute myself, right, I can click that, or I can click on that arrow and you'll see these additional options in terms of which microphone to use and some other audio settings. So not a bad thing to have stumbled across. So quick call out, anybody struggling to get that piece done? We want to make sure people are coming along. Kathy.
Yeah.
I'm hitting Kathy, but it doesn't come up. It doesn't let me
Right.
type anything.
Right click on Kathy on where your picture is and you see your name, right click
Okay.
So yes.
and you get to your name.
So you may be either
should
able
say
to right
rename.
click, or you might have a thing that says more or like a ...
Can you do that?
Dot. I got the dot.
Okay, that's where that is. So on your picture, there's a ... that might give you the options. If you've pulled up the participant sidebar, so I just put that away. If I bring up that participant sidebar and then go to your own name, there's a more that should give you that option as well.
Oh yeah, cool.
So a couple ways to do that. So functional for yourself,
Oh, yeah.
for your kids, perhaps, and things like that. It's worth noting and know how to do that. Anybody else? Any questions? So I'm going to cover with that brief introduction of just the basic interface buttons. We're going to talk about some of the individual tools as we go. And just as a reminder, right, here's your mute and your video on off, right? And you may want to turn your video on and off throughout a call. If there's something going on, you may just want to toggle that off. One best practice example, one like good idea that might be worth doing if you haven't considered it, is in your meetings, if you're the one who's supposed to be teaching or facilitating that class, it may be worth having a second person who's actually hosting or co-hosting the meeting that can be in charge of some of these things, so that you're not getting distracted by background noise and, you know, hey, I need to jump in here and try and mute somebody or help somebody with something or pay attention to comments or some other things that are going on, or maybe even sharing content. So like we had Shannon have that video ready to go, and she was able to pull that up and share. It's something to keep in mind that might be a best practice thing to do with some of your classes, to have somebody else co-hosting and being in charge of some of those things, so that you're
I
not.
like that. I like that because it makes it so there's not dead time.
Yeah,
I
right.
had some dead time today.
Yeah, so if you're hunting for
Can I
things,
say something? Can I say something, Ben?
please.
Another thing that might be a really good idea, and I can see how we can apply that in seminary, is that sometimes there are people who are too shy to just speak up, and they might say something in the chat box.
Mhm.
And then if there's another person whose sole responsibility is to make sure that they know what's going on there, then they can like interject and make sure that everybody gets heard, because a lot of times that's really a huge part of the conversation. And if it doesn't get shared, that people who are just like a black screen or they're on the phone, they don't get to see that. They don't know what's going on.
That is fantastic. We're going to talk about that. And actually that's a perfect segue into where we're headed. And that's a great point, right? Because we have these different personalities. I'm what I call an active listener. So I have typically no problem interjecting when I feel like I should, but other people are very different, right? They're not comfortable doing that just out of politeness or whatever else. And great call out. So actually we're going to dive right into that, the chat function a little bit. So talking about how we're interacting as groups. There's a couple different uses of the chat function. There's an active use of that. So we might want to ask people to use the chat function purposely as a teacher. And then there's a more passive use where people are either just interjecting a comment or adding something. So when we look at our toolbar, there's the chat function right here down below. If we click on that, that'll bring up, again, usually a sidebar that gives us the ability to type in items and chat. So we've already have somebody that's used that. If you're not aware, there's a to button down here, and by default, it's to everyone. So you're chatting to the group. There is an opportunity to select somebody and click on Emily Douglas, to call her out again here, and just say, hey, the lighting is really bad behind you, and there's a bunch of glare or whatever. You might want to shut, or I really liked your comment, right? Specifically to her. You could do that. Other times, again, you can have everyone. So a good little feature. So we're gonna do something real quick just to jump right in to using that actively. You can kind of use it as like an informal polling system. So I'm gonna ask everybody to use the chat feature and share with everybody your favorite ice cream flavor while we talk about a couple things. So go ahead and use that chat feature and throw out what that is, and we'll just see what kind of answers come up. Awesome. So we'll start to see those roll in. And I can also like close my participants if that's not interesting to me, and I get a larger chat bar here as well. Awesome, awesome. Cookies and cream. I love it. So that can be a good way to get people to interact and give answers to things that, sometimes people aren't willing to just speak up and or if you're looking for an answer for everybody, that's a pretty straightforward answer. Like, hey, what do you guys think about this? Or what do you think Joseph Smith did when, kind of a thing. It can just be a quick way to get people to interact and engage and get those answers without sometimes that dead time, that quiet silence.
And can I say something real quick?
Please.
When I was teaching one of the, what are they called? The life skills class for self-reliance. A lot of times the videos wouldn't work, because of differing internet speeds.
Mm-hmm.
And what we used a lot is we would put the link to the video that we were watching in the chat, and then just everyone would watch it on their own screen. And that worked really a lot better than sometimes it's hard to get it to work on everybody's, but something for people to use if they need to.
That's a great call out. Jay Jensen just used that in a group meeting we were doing the other day, and it worked quite well. So that is a great call out. Okay, so real quick, so the other use of the chat function is a little more passively, right? Something that you just might want to say during a meeting to say, oh, I really like that, or to share a link that was coming across. So as I talk about one more feature here with the couple minutes we have left on this section, just be thinking about a scripture that's been on your mind lately, and just go ahead and share that in the comments as we're talking about this other content. You can either just throw in the citation or an excerpt of the words that you remember from the scripture, and just go ahead and share that when something comes to mind. While you're doing that, and talking about this group dynamic and interacting. So we have, in my case, we have this nice group gallery view, which is nice. I can see most of the people. Sometimes you'll have a big enough group that they kind of actually bleeds onto a couple different pages. When people speak up, they'll kind of come onto this first page. But as far as, asking for answers or people who might want to contribute, one thing people do occasionally, right, is they'll raise their hand in their view without speaking up and have an opportunity to call on them. But another thing that you can do is what's in this button called reactions. There's a few things in here. There's a thumbs up and a heart, a couple emojis. Maybe that would be useful. I'm not sure. But one thing that's interesting here is this raise hand feature. So in addition to just visually raising your hand here, you can kind of alert the host or a co-host that you might have something to contribute by going on here and raising your hand. And it shows a little icon here in the actual view and alerts the host that somebody has done that. And so you can throw that up there, and as soon as I finish my thought, you're able to call on them. And I think hosts and co-hosts can, I think if you go down here, lower hand. So I could on my own, I think lower my hand, or I think I can do that to participants as well. And then you can turn that off as well. So if you guys want to just jump into those reactions, either throw up an emoji for a second or raise your hand and lower it, make sure you know how to click on those buttons. And while you're playing with that tool real quick, I should see, okay, I see a couple emojis coming up, some hands going up. I'm going to ask Shannon to just call out somebody from the comments that she saw with the scriptures to ask just a quick follow-up of why that came to mind.
Oh, there's some good ones out here. They're coming in here, just a second. Aubrey, you put DNC chapter 3, verse 4. What's that one? And why did you pick that?
Dang it, you called on me. Just kidding. No, I read that one this week and it definitely stuck with me because, I'll tell you what it is. It says, for although a man may have many revelations and have power to do many mighty works, yet if he boasts in his own strength and says that not the counsels of God, follows after the dictates of his own will and carnal desires, he must fall and incur the vengeance of a just God upon him. And so I just like that no matter how many times in my life maybe I listen and follow the revelations I feel like come to me, if I choose at any one point to start following my own will, then it wasn't really worth anything. So you have to always consistently be following Christ, and I just really like that verse.
That's a good one. Thank you. Very good.
All right, so we're running a tad bit long here, but we definitely want to hit this next section, and I'm going to hand it over to Shannon to talk about breakout rooms.
Okay. Ben, do you want to show as we're talking about this?
Yep.
Okay.
So right down here, there's the button for breakout rooms, just as far as initiating the function. And it gives you a couple options. So you'll click on that. It'll give you an option around assigning the participants automatically, or you could manually bucket them if you had a smaller group and you wanted to make sure they were in them, or you can let them do that themselves. So I'll set this up for 4 rooms. Does that sound good, Shannon?
Yep, go ahead and create. It'll then show you how many people that you have in each room. So
That'll be
I
perfect.
usually just keep it at automatically. So
Then you have people asking you questions in the chat that they can't find the emojis and stuff and the raise hand thing.
Perfect. You're just not seeing the button then there?
The reactions button?
Are you
Yeah,
not-
there's no raise hand below the emojis on our end.
Oh, really?
There's clap and a thumbs up and a heart and laughing, but yeah, there's
Mine doesn't have an emoji for it. It has the words that actually says raise hand.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, there's nothing on our end. No,
Click
there's
on
just,
a
Can you
tablet.
make it bigger? Maybe it's not big enough to include it.
we made it bigger and smaller. That's right.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to do a follow-up on that one. But sounds like most people found it. Okay, we'll do a follow-up there.
Actually, what we could probably do, Ben, is why don't we go into the, I'll go through the breakout rooms, and then after we do this, we can show them how we did it. Because it's been a little bit of time since I've done this, so I want to refresh myself so we can ask questions. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, once Ben will give me control of as a host.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought it was a moment ago, but once that happens, then at the bottom of my screen, I'll have an option for breakout rooms. I'm going to put you all in separate rooms. What will happen is that you'll go in. There'll probably be 2 or 3. Let's see, we have 3, 6, 9, 15. So if I did, let's see, 3 rooms of 5, you'll be with just those people. You'll see, just as we see each other right now, you'll be just with those people. And you can have a conversation. And then when I want to bring everybody back, you'll get a message that says that you have 60 seconds left to finish your discussion. And then I'll bring everybody back into the room. So it's really automatic. This just gives you guys this is a great tool when you're working with youth, especially, but I think it works well with adults too. Gives them an opportunity just to kind of get together, just a few of them at a time, and let them have a conversation, let them have some time to think about the question that you have, and get some discussion around it, and then come back, and then it makes an even better discussion when you get the groups back together. So we're going to practice this for a second. The question for you in your groups is, what have you liked and what has been hard for you about virtual church meetings? So what have you liked and what's been challenging for virtual church meetings? You'll need to pick a spokesperson, and you might want somebody to write, you want to write notes, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about that, okay? What's also great about this is when you're using this as a tool, when you have the breakout rooms, the host can go into each room. And so I can come back in and ask if you have questions or if there's something that, you know, I didn't explain correctly. So I can come in and out to help you with that as well. So, and I believe that there is a button in there too. The Smiths can help me remember if there's a button in there, I think, if you need help or have other questions, that will call the host back in. All right, so let me put you in your breakout rooms, and we'll do this for, let's see, how much time we have. We'll give you about 4 minutes. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Not yet.
Ben?
All right, it's like our group here, huh?
Yep, I'll put a broadcast message to all in here, and I'll put the question again.
Awesome. Jen, I see you down there. Oh, she's not in our group anymore. I think because we're hosts, it sounds like they all went. I actually haven't done this before, so they've all been distributed. You and I,
Right.
out here. Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, and then I see when you click on breakout rooms, you see each one of those rooms. You could move them if you wanted to. Okay. I actually haven't done this before.
And then you see, can you see where you can go in and join?
I see. Let me do that again. So I see.
You probably can't see it.
I see move to. Do you know where you would join? I see unassigned. So because
Yeah,
you're
no.
the host and I could
Yeah.
throw you into a room.
No, you'll have a big box and it shows who's in each room. And then next to the room, you probably don't see it because I'm the one that put the breakout rooms out.
Oh, okay.
But there's, next to each room, there's a join button. And so if I go in and join, say hi, I just
Oh,
go
I
back,
see. I see
back
it.
out.
Yeah,
See
I
it?
see it now. Okay. It's on, there's a for me, I see like rooms, it's like the header and then it says there's 4 in that. And if I hover over the 4, I hit join.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that is cool. Yep.
I haven't been, what time did we put them in? About 2:36?
Yeah, probably. We'll
Been in
give-
a minute?
Yeah.
2:40.
Maybe 2:39, we'll do the pull them back in, give them 60 seconds.
Okay.
Which I think will put us, I think screen sharing will go pretty quick. Scheduling a meeting will go pretty quick. So
All right. I'm going to join room 1 just to see how they're doing.
awesome.
You click on join room 1. I hit yes. You probably weren't able to see that, were you, when the breakout rooms, when I
Nope.
went in? Oh, okay. All right.
Here.
All right, I'm going to join one more breakout room. When I come back out, then I'll send them back.
Awesome.
I just wanted to see how this,
I'm listening to Aubrey's group from other side of the wall and it's been cool.
okay. They're having some good conversations. I got to say hi a couple times. The others, I just popped in and popped back out. So.
Good, good. Yeah.
All right. So at the bottom of this, you can see it has broadcast message to all and then close all rooms, which I'm going to do, which will give them another minute.
Perfect.
This is all participants have been given 60 seconds to leave. And you could change that setting as well.
Is that just under like other
Under settings.
somewhere? Yeah. Yeah. Good, good. Awesome.
I have a, you know, when I go to share my screens,
Mm-hmm.
the green bar is up at the top. It covers up my tabs.
Oh, I
I
know.
can't see
Yeah.
where to click. I'm a little clumsy when it comes to sharing screens. I can do it, but it's not pretty.
Yeah.
And then if you don't forget to turn it off and you go back and
Yeah.
oh, it just keeps going. All coming back.
Hello. Thank you.
Shannon,
How'd
will
you
you
like it?
share with us? Shannon, will you share with us how you posted that question into the individual rooms? I didn't know we could do that.
Yep, I'm gonna let Ben navigate to show it because I don't have
Yep.
to where I can show you from my screen.
I didn't see a question. Did you guys see a question?
Mhm.
Did.
Yep.
Oh,
So when you're clicking on breakout rooms, you have them all there. You would, you probably can't do it now because. if
Yeah, you can't do it now, but you get a dialogue like this, right, Shannon?
Yep, you get dialogue dialogue like that. And then when you open the rooms, it'll give you a pop-up at the bottom just for you as the host or the creator of the rooms that says send a message.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
Open the room.
That's where you just click on it's like chat and send a message. Also, once you open all rooms, you'll get a pop-up that shows these rooms, and over like room 1, over to the right, there'll be a button that says join. And you can go in, and that's how I came in and just kind of said hi and waved. And then you'll see the button to come back out of it. And then at the bottom, you'll also see next to the button that says you can pose a question, or what was the chat button. There's a button that says close all rooms. And then when you do that, it'll tell you they're going to close it in 60 seconds. It gives you kind of a countdown until everybody is back. One thing though about what joining rooms, when you go in to join a class, when you go to leave that room, it gives you an option to leave that room or leave the whole Zoom session. Don't click on leaving the Zoom session. If you've done that, it's a problem. And so just make sure you click on leaving the class. So.
yeah. So I could tell from Shannon's feedback and listening to my wife's meeting or on the other side of the wall here, like you can see how much more interactive 3 or 4 people can be, much more casual conversation than you can with a whole big group of people where you kind of have to wait your turn to say things. So the banter kind of casual dialogue is a really great way to do some things for some of these even larger groups. So really cool tool. It's a little intimidating if you haven't done it before, and it's not something you can really practice ahead of time necessarily. Watch a YouTube video, or just with whatever group you have, say, hey, this is the first time we're doing it. Let's dive in and try it out. But that kind of little experience, hopefully.
Yeah, try it with your family when you Zoom call them.
Yeah.
Put them all in rooms.
Okay, so we're going to jump to the next section here. Talk about screen sharing. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Wait, you asked us a question in those chat rooms. Are we going to get a chance to talk about the answers to those questions?
We're going to come back to it. So
Okay,
yeah,
good.
yeah, we're going to come back to it. Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk about screen sharing. So I have my screen shared right now. I had to change a specific setting, as Shannon and I discovered in our dry run yesterday, to enable you to see this actual screen dialogue and these tools here. Usually what you do to share your screen is you'll come right down here, and really with Zoom, it's pretty flexible unless a host has changed some things that really anybody, including a participant, can share their screen. The screen button, you'll push that and it'll give you this dialogue right here. You can either share your desktop, and what I was saying before was I had to share a specific setting to allow you to see my actual Zoom window. Usually if you just hit your desktop and hit share, it'll minimize the Zoom window and you'll get a little window just on the top right with the video speakers, and it'll go to your next open window, you know, whether it's a Word or a website, whatever you have open, it'll go to that. So that's what will typically happen. You can also select specific programs. So if you have like your web browser or a Word document or some other program file open, it'll be right here and you can click on that and it will only share that. So if you scroll away from or minimize that window, they won't see your personal desktop. They won't see things like that. It'll just show that one interaction. There's also some cool things here we're not going to get into today that you could show, like doing something on your own phone or use the whiteboard function. But all you'll do is select what you want to share. I'll click on my Google Chrome, for example, here instead and hit share. That's all you have to do for that. And that allows you to see what's up on my web browser.
If you're going to share a screen, make sure that the buttons at the bottom for the sound are on.
So
Otherwise, you won't be able to hear.
Let me stop sharing for a second. So I'll go back to that. So in addition to selecting what you want to share, what Shannon was saying is if you're going to share a video, there's 2 things. There's share sound that will allow that to come through, sounds on your computer. Like if you were like, that could be anything from just the sounds of clicking buttons or whatever, which are then typically generally off. And then there's this other button that's optimized for video clip. I actually tested this the other day with another computer in the house, and it actually does a pretty good job optimizing so that there's not lag. The sound isn't quite as choppy. So if you're going to share a video clip, definitely select that as well. So as we share that, and I'll skip kind of reading through the website stuff here kind of actually harkens back to Brother Pumford's comment around making sure that we're focusing on the same principles that apply in virtual as did before. But that's a great way to share content. And it's actually a good idea. If you have a talk that you're kind of doing a lot of reading through or having people cite things, of course, we can all pull that up on our own devices and we welcome people to do that. But if you're actually going to spend some time on some shared material, whether it's the Come Follow Me lesson or a talk, when you're actually diving into that content, it's maybe a good idea to just go ahead and pull that up and share that with the group anyways, so that we can all follow along in the same place and might not have to rely on our own inability to find the content or other device issues that might come up.
For some reason today, when I was trying to share videos, it would let me choose the sound button, but the other one, I couldn't click it, the optimize video one. And I tried it just like 5 minutes before, just like with my phone, and it let me do it then. But then when I was in the actual meeting, it wouldn't let me do the optimization thing. It would let me do check sound, but not the other one.
So one thing I've come across in some of these options and configurations, and one of them applies actually to this view with speaker and gallery view, there are some basic like computer configuration or capacity limitations. I don't know exactly what those specifications are, but it may not have liked the graphics card, for example, that would be in the computer, and it won't give you that option. That's possible. So everything is always worth opening it up and giving things tries that you haven't done before, because you will bump up against things and they're somewhat inevitable, but that could be why.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So who had, by show of hands or buttons, who has not shared their screen in a Zoom call before? Anybody? Okay, a couple. So we're not going to bounce that today, but by all means, if you have the opportunity, the next time you might do that, have a meeting invite. You can always join your own meeting invitations if you've created them ahead of time, and just test that out. Make sure you have up what you want. Sometimes just things are funny, like with the way, I don't know that you can see this where I'm sharing my screen now. You don't actually, but there's actually a menu of options up across the top. So you might see this green bar that says you are screen sharing and stop sharing. So when you're done sharing or want to be done sharing, make sure that you hit stop sharing. So I do that here. But also when you go up to the top of your screen, you'll get that a menu of options that you're not seeing on my screen. So make sure you've done that before if you haven't, but it's pretty straightforward.
If you're showing a video, if you're sharing screen, if you noticed what I did, I'm kind of clumsy when sharing screens, but just remember, if you're showing a video, to stop the video and then go back to having everybody together, because otherwise, if you noticed, we're all back together and you can continue to hear the video or commercials or whatever is after that video. So just I've learned from a hard experience.
And there's one more thing. If there's an orange thing at the top there, you just have to stop share and go back out and just reshare it, unless somebody knows a quicker workaround. What you've done is shared the wrong screen and it's not allowing you to share it.
Gotcha. So that might relate to if you had maybe inadvertently shared like a Word program document, but then you're opening your web browser and you're like, hey, you're not sharing this, by the way. So there's some features that kind of help you know what you're sharing, and just backing right back out and resharing what you wanted to share is a great way to do that. So I'm going to skip just one other video we were going to share. But any questions from the group around screen sharing or really anything that we've covered to this point? Pretty good? Okay. I know we've thrown a lot of things out there. The last thing as just a feature to cover, let me share my screen again one more time. It's just around scheduling a meeting. So I'm going to raise your hands again. Who has not scheduled a Zoom meeting themselves before? Okay, so quite a few hands here. The first thing to call out as just rule of thumb, best practice anyways, is it's probably a good idea to just let an organizational lead kind of manage and control that anyway. So if I'm a teacher within my organization, I know I'm teaching coming up, it's totally fine to have a key point person manage those invitations. limit the number of logins that the church users actually have. So that's totally fine on that front. But if you find yourself in a situation to need to be scheduling meetings, it's really pretty easy. Let me actually see if that, so this is my dialogue. So when you open that on the app, when you have that loaded on your computer, you can do this via the web browser as well. So you can just go to this online as well. But you're just able to schedule meetings in here. I'm just going to call out a couple things, whether you're scheduling themselves or asking for them to be scheduled. When you do this, of course, you can put in a title for the meeting and set the date and time that's going to take place. But give thought to the purpose of whether you want that to be an individual meeting. So this is just a one-time meeting like this training call, or whether this is a regular meeting that you want to have coming up on a regular basis. So if I'm teaching every week or every other week, you can make this a recurring meeting so that it is basically always accessible at those times. And then you don't have to resend links every time. That might be useful, or it might not be what you want specifically. That's up to you. But if you haven't given that thought, it's something worth doing. And then the other thought about that was there are just a couple of options here, not a big deal. But one, under the advanced options, one thing you can kind of dictate whether people come in muted or not, depending on the nature of the meeting that you're having. But you can automatically record down here. So if it's a meeting that you know you want to record, we tend to forget to kind of push that button down at the bottom as we do that. It's a great thing to do right down here if that's what you want to have happen, and save that so that you can share it later.
Then we have a question out here on chat. If your leader schedules the meeting, do they have to attend as well?
So there's a couple things that you can do. So Zoom is really flexible. There's a couple other platforms that aren't as flexible with who's hosting the meeting. Usually when you do this, so I'll show you, for example, allow participants to join anytime. So that is by default usually checked, which means if I hadn't have joined yet, or I was running late and people started dialing in, you'd be able to come into the meeting. And if you're the first person, you'll just kind of sit there. And when the second person joins, you guys can start chatting before anybody else is doing things, and you can have a meeting even without the host. You can share your screen even without the host, and it usually assigns the first person as quote unquote the host until the actual host joins. So from a casual whatever perspective, in most use cases, it's totally fine. You can actually then also enable an additional host down here, and you could put in their email for the people who are joining if you needed them to have some kind of specific hosting rights for a meeting that you weren't joining. So the short answer is generally no, it's not a big deal, and it's totally fine. If you knew you wanted to do something specific like record or do something very specific, you might want to set up something ahead of time so that you had hosting rights if you knew that the person who was creating it was not going to be in that meeting.
Yep. Good point, Lorena. Yes, you would have to disable the waiting room. So you have a meeting that's set up with waiting rooms. That's a meeting that people have to, you come in as the host, and nobody comes into the meeting until the host lets you in. So if I open up the meeting and I saw all of you there, I just see your names, and then I would allow you to enter. Sometimes that's been, I know it was counseled when we taught seminary that we had that, because we had some crazy people out there that would like to kind of jump in on meetings, hackers, and disrupt. So I know I see the Smiths shaking their head. I think you probably still use that, but for most instances, just as Ben said, you can just open it up that people can come in before you even join. But that option is there for the group.
Yeah. And works really well in tandem with the best practice of having a co-host so that you can start teaching. And if people are joining or coming in and out, that they can manage that a little bit without you getting distracted. Most often shouldn't be needed. It was advised at the beginning, but there may be times where you want to do that as well. So
can we kick people off if they're like that?
You, as a host, yes, you can. Right. The potential scenario is that somebody just keeps coming back and is just trying to be particularly disruptive. Probably very unlikely scenario, but that's kind of what that helps you with. it helps. There's also like because there's a personal room channel as well, like that I have on my work thing. And that's basically, it's the same invite all the time and people could join at any time. And so that's a good way to have that defaulted. So if I'm having a call and maybe somebody joins early to that meeting room that I'm still on, I don't have to admit them into my space while I'm having that call. So it's a little bit more for something like that.
And I think you'd find that in the participants, if you had to move quickly, you just click on the participants, you'd see them listed, and then the more would allow you to turn them off.
So if you do have that problem, which you probably won't, but if you ever did, one thing that you can resort to is just sending out a link before the meeting, a new link, and not using an old link. That's usually where that comes from, is if you have an old link that gets used recurringly, it gets shared. And when you're doing it right before the meeting, it's more difficult for that to be shared.
Yep.
Good point.
All right, so we're at the tail end here. Before we discuss kind of what our thoughts from our breakout groups, any other thoughts on features, functions, questions on that front? This would be the forum to do it. Okay. Awesome. Well, I'll invite the people who are designated as note takers or spokesmen to just share with us, or anybody else that has ideas about what they've learned today, how they hope to utilize it, and what they liked and have found hard about our virtual learning scenarios.
We had three groups. So group one, you want to share?
I believe I was chosen, but it was like in the last second before the breakout room was destroyed. So, but what we don't really love about the Zoom thing is just the technology. There's kind of a learning curve a little bit. It's kind of tricky sometimes. This class definitely helped though with some of that. And then it's also just harder to engage with people. You know, when you're in person, you can call them out and you can see everybody and kind of just feel the energy of the room and stuff like that. But what we do like is that we can stay in our pajamas, at least, you know, the bottom half. There's one other thing. Oh, just preparation in general. It's a little bit easier to be prepared, I think, using the technology, just because we have everything in front of us rather than, you know, teaching in front of people with just notes. It's a little bit more difficult. So it's group one.
Good job, group one. Group two.
I'm going to jump in. We didn't actually assign somebody, but Emily and I both have had the same experience. Are you okay for me to share, Emily?
What about the other two?
Well, they hadn't hosted a meeting yet.
Oh.
So we're both in the youth, and we didn't even get to what we like, because the one we don't like is so huge. It's just getting the youth to be the ones to be doing most of the talking, because what we know for absolute fact is that if they are just listening, they're not really gaining anything. That it has to be something where we're doing like no talking. We're just facilitating and making sure that it's running smoothly and kind of.
Instead of pouring knowledge down a funnel into their mouth,
yeah,
trying to start a fire.
Yeah, we don't want to be bucket dumping. And so we've actually several times wanted to call Mark and just, Mark, will you please just tell us everything? Because what we noticed is that in the adult groups when he was teaching,
the king of Sunday school,
yeah, is that he did such minimal talking. And we know that that's a learning curve, and we want to just suck his brain. We're getting some training from our area leaders in seminary, but that's a challenge. And Emily, do you want to share what your experience has been, or do you want us to share for you?
Well, I was just sharing that from Young Women, I guess. Now that I'm looking, there's nobody else from Young Women's on here, but I taught the lesson a few weeks ago, and I reached out to girls to go ahead and jump on and share. But just in general, we've had a hard time with participation and just even getting girls to get on. But I don't know if that's purely a Zoom thing or if it's just a youth thing. I don't know.
Probably both.
Some of it's a carryover from in-person
Hard.
meetings, just the same,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
doesn't make it any easier.
Right.
But what I like,
Hey, we gotta say bye, everybody. We gotta get on with the missionaries. Yeah.
okay,
Bye, thanks.
but what I like about the Zoom meetings is we get to sing the hymns in Sacrament.
There you go. Yeah.
So we're committed to sharing with the other youth leaders what we learned that works. But if there are other people who have input for that, like we've learned some powerful things about silence is actually okay, to be quiet and let them have a chance to think, things like that. But I think that maybe some of these things would actually be effective in every group. I don't know, just a thought there. Maybe that can be shared in a different platform, maybe even with, I don't know if there's a group email that goes out, but something like that, Ben.
We found in Young Men's that, well, it's like you said, you want the interaction to be with them, and you want the learning to flow from within. And so, Josh Nicklin is my co-teacher, and he teaches the deacons, and I get the teachers and priests, and so we just kind of put them all together. But he shared this app called Gather, which is kind of a Minecraft looking type of interface. And it's called Gather Town or whatever. And so we really like that because the kids like it, and they can move around. And then instead of us putting them in groups, because the breakout rooms are this, that's the great part of any kind of Zoom or whatever, so you put the kids can actually go to their own breakout rooms, and once they're in the breakout rooms they can talk, and there's interaction and all that kind of stuff. And then just like we did, we have them come out and report, and therefore there's more kid interaction. But the interface they find more engaging than Zoom, and they have a little more control. And for kids, give them some control. That's huge. And then just good questions, so that so when they're going into the breakout rooms, they've got some good stuff to talk about and to analyze. It's like Elder Bednar says, the quality of their questions is huge. And so that's what we found that has worked. But we have the same problem with attendance, and a couple of kids, their avatar just goes dark. It's like, is anybody there? But it's not easy. Solomon Khan, who is the maker of Khan Academy, which is really the gold standard of online instruction in the secular world. And he said, if I had a choice between great technology and a great teacher, I'd choose a great teacher anytime, any day, for my kid, for your kids, for any kid. And so, this virtual world is not the ideal world. I mean, it's something we have to kind of get through and learn from. One thing we were talking about in our breakout class is we prefer state meetings to be Zoom meetings, just because they're so much more convenient, And anyway, 2 cents.
Yeah. No, yeah, we appreciate those thoughts. Those are great. Well, we're running a tad bit long here, and we're just wrapping up. Any final thoughts to share?
Group 3, get all
Our group was pretty much the same. The only thing else that we talked about, Rachel said that, if you're not completely ready for a meeting, you can still turn it on and continue getting ready and keep your video off. So we kind of like that. And the things we didn't like were just, helping older people who aren't on mute, who need to be, especially as we're all getting used to it, and not being able to hear people. But that's pretty much what everybody else said. I wanted to say my boys are new in the youth program, and it has been hard for them to get to know people in the ward because of all just the online stuff. And you know, like I'm like, who said that? And he'll be like, I don't know anybody's name. How would I know anybody's name? You know, and I'm like, you grew up together. You know, but it's been hard for them to get to know people. They go to things, you know, but challenging.
They are awesome addition
Thank
to the
you.
young men's
For
group.
sure. Yeah.
We love
Thanks.
having them.
Well, I appreciate all that, everybody. You know, there's definitely limitations, which is why we're here talking about how we can maximize it. There's some upsides, like staying in your pajamas and some other things. There are limitations. We just want to be able to minimize those limitations as much as possible, right? And make it as least intrusive on the downsides as possible. So I appreciate you guys' time here today. You've made a meeting about meetings about as bearable as possible. So we appreciate you guys' engagement and interaction there. And hopefully we'll keep this going. You know, Em, you talked about, you know, Mark has modeled this pretty well, and his role as Sunday school president, like maybe we'll funnel some good best practice and examples, you know, through him, and have him, you know, just manage some communication and can bring things to the ward council channel and do some of that to make sure we're learning. And so, hey, report back as participants or as people teaching some of these ideas that may have come from today. Report back how they worked, what you might tweak from the last time you tried it. That would be fantastic.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is there like a group email or something for the teachers on this group that we can share ideas with each other? Or is there a format or a platform or anything?
There's not necessarily right now. We could certainly create an email based off of this group. There's the Gospel Living app that you're able to create groups that would be based around that. I don't know if anybody's used that or engaged in that recently, but if we're learning technology anyways, maybe that's something we could try out and utilize for that exact purpose.
Can you create one? Because I have a few observations as just a new member in our ward, and I've been listening very carefully to the feedback that you've given, and there are a few things that, although we haven't had time to talk about them or made a big deal of them, I think they are a big deal, and I have some suggestions of things we can do as a ward that maybe we'll get some dialogue going that can have some real good results, because we don't want any youth to feel like they can't connect, or any adults, but definitely not our youth.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more, there's a YouTube channel. If you Google, it's called Simpletivity, SIMPLETIVITY, Simpletivity Zoom. And his name, I can't remember, I think his name's Steven. Anyway, he has some really good, quick YouTube videos that go over like breakout rooms, Zoom setting tips, meeting tips. They're, you know, like 5 to 8 minutes long. So I found those a really good resource. He takes you step by step. That might be helpful as well. Thank you, guys.
We'll share that link. So I know Shannon and I talked about, we're going to share this recording. We're going to share the agenda, kind of just the points, the features we covered today, and some supporting materials with you guys. So we'll circulate that so you'll have it. For those of you in your presidencies who weren't able to join today, let's get that shared so that we can at least review this and hopefully maybe have a conversation within your presidencies as well around how that works, right? It's going to be different with the adults and with, if your calling is with youth or with children, right? How do we orient this around for the primary kids? So we'll get that shared. We'll continue the conversation. I think that'll be great.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Is there a way to do like a group, like that whiteboard? If I were to do the whiteboard during primary, could people put could the kids draw a little picture on it and then print it out? Is there a way to print it out? I don't even know if that exists, but.
Yeah, I don't know if you're able to print that out or not. I've never tried that.
Just
right.
I was thinking that maybe I would put together a card for somebody and then send it to them. And I was just wondering if that is a group interaction thing that's available.
Screenshot.
I was gonna say, if we have ideas like that, let's pursue it and we can ask people, because let's use the feature. And I was gonna say, screenshot it at the very least. You would be able to do that and print it out and do something.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
it's usually a way.
Yeah.
Is there
And
a
then again-
whiteboard? I don't even know about that.
It's when you share, when you go to share your
Oh.
screen, you'll see a whiteboard.
Wow.
And Patty, there's, if you just Google Zoom whiteboard, they've got lots of videos out there. Might be able to
Okay.
find an answer for you.
Okay.
I love Google.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly, the best uses if you had this. I know even when you're
Oh, you
sharing
can
your-
save it.
your
You
screen
can.
in general, yeah. Oh, yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
So
you can save it. So there you go.
Awesome.
Yep.
Hmm.
Awesome.
And then you'll be able to print it. Good question.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Well, very good. We'll go ahead and close. If I could invite Angie, would you mind giving us a closing prayer?
Sure. Happy to.
Thank you.
Our Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for this day. We're thankful for the time and effort that our teachers have done to help us learn to be better online teaching. We're thankful for thy spirit and for all that thou helps us with every day. We pray that thou would continue to be with us and our families, bless our families for our service, and watch over us, help us to be safe and protected. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you,
Thanks,
Shanna.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.